Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Victory News from Ukraine channel. Russian tanks are regarded as steel monsters, arriving on the battlefield as conquerors. Yet, in Ukrainian territory, these war machines fail to perform as effectively as expected. Along the front lines, Russian tanks and armored vehicles continually become targets of Ukrainian forces and are destroyed. These seemingly invincible war machines gradually become weak and desperate. As for the Kynky front, a site of fierce battles, it is now becoming the greatest trap for the Russian army. Foolish tactics are pushing Russian soldiers into a suicidal mission. Russian tanks, once again, are not the victors, but rather symbols of failure and despair on a harsh battlefield. First, we'll visit the hot zone of Avdiivka. Russia attempted to attack Ukrainian positions again, mainly from the north, but they were unsuccessful, and a Russian convoy was completely ambushed. Take a look at this photo from Denis Davidov's Telegram channel. The Russians moved towards Stepova, but their tanks and infantry forces were targeted, so Stepova remains under Ukrainian control, which is great. Some videos have started to emerge from last week about the Russian attack in the same direction at Stepova, where they used T-90M tanks. The fate of this tank is unfortunately the same as other vehicles in the area. Recently, I checked the statistics on Russian losses since the beginning of the war, and what I can say is that Russia has lost more than 100 T-90M tanks. This is a very special type of tank for the Russian Federation. They also have the Armata tank, but the Armata was mainly produced for corruption schemes within the Russian army. However, the T-90 is definitely a combat tank. Not perfect, but also not weak. Essentially, the T-90 is a modernized version of the T-72, and Putin has called this tank the best ground combat vehicle without any competitors. But what is the reality? It has significant disadvantages compared to modern Western tanks, especially if we talk about the guns and ammunitions it uses. The transmission system is also quite weak. It's important to note that FPV drones do not care whether it's T-90 or a T-72, so this tank was ambushed and then shot and burned, just like the others. Looking back at this video, the Russian tank in the village of Stepova was targeted by at least 2 drones and was then completely incinerated. As you can see, the crew had all run away, so hopefully Ukraine will be able to capture this trophy. Updating the map from the Telegram page Majakovsk73, it's clear that Russia wants to occupy Stepova today. However, all their tanks and vehicles were ambushed. Additionally, there was fighting in the north and another attack in this direction. As a result, everything was moved out of Krasnohorivka. It can be said that this area is the main attacking point of the Russian army. Let's move to the direction of Liman, where Russia also tried to attack but failed again. Looking at this video, you'll see a group of 3 Russian vehicles, namely the MTLB tank and the armored vehicles BMP-4 and BMD-4. Witnessing this thrilling scene from the perspective of a drone, the powerful MTLB tank transporting infantry sweeping across the vast fields. The atmosphere is tense to the point of suffocation when suddenly a loud explosion is heard. One of the armored vehicles is blown up by a mine, creating a column of smoke and fierce fire. Shortly thereafter, the second vehicle also faces a similar fate. In the midst of chaos, the remaining tank, like a panicked steel monster, quickly changes direction and starts to flee. The FPV drone, like a powerful, prowling hunter, swiftly locates and targets the lone tank. In a matter of minutes, the situation shifts. Flames start to rise from the tank, creating a spectacular and terrifying spectacle. The smoke and explosions in the air bear witness to the intensity of the battlefield. In an analysis published by the German newspaper BILD, it is confirmed the Kynky bridgehead is becoming the biggest trap for the Russian army since the beginning of the war. According to military expert Julian Repke, around 300 Ukrainian soldiers are currently holding the destroyed village of Kynky on the left bank of the Dnipro River. The area of the bridgehead is less than 1 square kilometer. The Kremlin is sending more and more armored convoys there, not realizing that they're falling into a trap as Ukraine fires at them from the right bank. What the Russians fail to realize, or refuse to acknowledge really, is that they're engaging in the most perilous suicide mission of the entire war. The Ukrainian army has created an impenetrable shield around their brave soldiers on the southern banks of Ukraine. With the help of kamikaze drones and the highly precise artillery of the West, They've repelled every Russian offensive wave for nearly 3 months now. Statistics suggest that 153 Russian armored units have been destroyed in an attempt to capture Kynky. These include 19 tanks, 58 APCs, 35 military trucks, 12 MLRS, and 6 UAS. Ukraine lost 31 armored vehicles, including 16 artillery systems in return. Therefore, you can see the mainstream media sources provide information from only one side, and they do so to capture viewers' attention and to win on the media front. The Ukrainian military will soon have to decide whether to advance from Kynky to reclaim the territory under Russian control, and then to cut off their main supply route, located around 5 kilometers from Kynky. If Russia continues to use artillery on our positions, the good thing is that Russia has lost their bombers, so they're hesitant to use aviation as they previously did in the city. This chart shows that December was the first month in which Russia used more FPV drones than Ukraine. Now, why is this the case? Because they have government support for the FPV drone program, producing them en masse. In October, they used 124 drones in infantry attacks, and in 1 month, they tripled that number. However, it's important to emphasize here, in the use of drones across various battlefields, the Ukrainian military still maintains a significant lead over them. And why is this? Because Russia conducts foolish attacks. Ukraine targets many vehicles, especially in October when Russia tried to approach Avdiivka, attacking the town with many vehicles, all of which were destroyed. But we must not be complacent in this regard. Hopefully, Ukraine will develop a proper government support program for the production of these rather successful FPV drones. But I don't see any signs of this happening, even though President Zelensky says he supports the program. Currently, around 90% of FPV-related activities are due to Ukrainian volunteers, not the government. The Russian army has received a significant amount of artillery shells from Iran and North Korea, and they have various types of shells from different countries, especially from their allies. Additionally, they've boosted their own production, so by 2024, Russia will have a large stockpile of artillery shells in their military. However, seeing this from a long-term perspective, I believe the forces are balanced because Ukraine also receives artillery shells from its allies. And although today John Kirby said the United States has stopped all military supplies to Ukraine due to budget constraints, I'm confident that a new agreement will be made to support Ukraine. Furthermore, Europe has promised to provide 1 million artillery shells to Ukraine before the spring. Finally, they say they'll increase the production of shells, so this is good news. But whether the quantity will be enough to defeat the Russian army, I'm not sure for 2024, but it could be a real possibility in 2025. Here's an intriguing piece of news we'd like to share with you. Business Insider reported yesterday that a platoon of 40 Russian soldiers abandoned their frontline positions and attempted to flee to Crimea. Clearly, this shows that the morale of the Russian soldiers has plummeted, and following the incident, the Kremlin had to intensify its measures to manage the troops. Nearly 40 Russian soldiers left their trenches and tried to flee towards Crimea while still armed. It means that an entire platoon, consisting of recruits who had never witnessed the horrors of the battlefield, did not understand what was happening. The Kiev Post revealed that Russian commanders at the front are resorting to threats of execution to force soldiers to attack Ukrainian positions. This is how they motivate the invaders to carry out assault attacks. That's why those who've carried out an assault and somehow survived refuse to undertake another one because they're afraid of going there again. The recent severe cold and unsanitary conditions are leading to an increase in desertions. This resulted in around 30 Russian soldiers surrendering to Ukraine in the Tavria region over a period of 4 days. Last month, a video emerged capturing a group of Russian soldiers expressing their outrage upon learning that they were not going to be territorial defense soldiers as they had initially thought, but rather an invading force sent to the front without proper training. In November, another video appeared showing Russian soldiers being beaten, forced to dig holes, made to stand for hours, and subjected to mock executions. The situation in the Russian town of Belgorod over the past few weeks is becoming extremely dire. This has been documented by the German newspaper DW as the Ukrainian army conducts daily shelling there. The Russian government has had to evacuate the first 300 residents of Belgorod to nearby locations. Belgorod, a town which is situated on the Russia-Ukraine border and home to about 350,000 residents, has become a target of Ukrainian attacks almost daily for about 2 weeks, as a response to Russia's intensified shelling of targets in Ukraine. Civilian casualties are a situation that neither side desires. We hope that the war will end soon so that the world can live in peace. And if you agree with our viewpoint, please leave your comments below. This is the end of our video. My friends, please don't forget to press a big like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and see you in the next video.